Good evening. Living in a nightmare. That's what some tenants on Wearside say they're experiencing, claiming their homes are being blighted by damp, mould and, in some cases, extreme cold because of a lack of insulation. Well, those living at properties managed by housing association Gentoo have told the BBC they're worried for their physical and mental health. Gentoo, which is the largest provider of social housing in Sunderland, has apologised and says it's started a programme of repair works, as Jim Scott reports.
This way. This is where the worst of the mould comes through.
For as long as Stewart can remember, black mould has been part of the furniture in his Washington home.
The constant cycle, clean the walls down. A week later, mould spores start to grow again.
But the Gentoo tenant says it's not just unsightly. Spores like this is seriously harming his health.
I can leave the house, be perfectly fine outside the house, come back in the house within 10 minutes I've got a blocked nose, I'm having to blow my nose, I can feel an itch at the back of my throat. We're told to open our windows, keep a draft coming through, and that would stop the mould. It doesn't. Our bedroom window upstairs, the bathroom window's constantly open, so we've got a through draft going through, and it just doesn't appear to make any difference at all.
Stewart says it's been a battle to get Gentoo to resolve the problems with mould, and he's still waiting for repairs to be agreed after a major leak 3 years ago.
We were left for 8 hours with water pouring through the ceiling, and we were desperate.
But it's been 3 years and it still looks like this.
Yeah, we asked Gentoo themselves, we said, look, somebody needs to come out, have a look at it, because it needs to be replaced. And they come round, oh, that's fine, it just needs a lick of paint.
Along the road in Sunderland, Robert says it's the same story. He moved here in 2021.
I've got an electric heater there and 3 quilts to try and keep warm, but it still gets cold.
He claims poor insulation is making his Gentoo-owned property extremely cold.
You can feel the cold air blowing out of the bed sheets. Your feet get cold. Your arms. Put your head on your pillows. The cold air blows up from behind the headboard. Your head gets cold, and it's just unpleasant.
Robert says he's also struggled with the housing association to get his problems addressed.
I'm nearly 70. I want to be able to go to bed comfortable without any cold drops. That's what I want. Other than that, move into a warmer property.
It comes as the government is set to reform how social housing landlords respond to complaints over mould and damp, requiring problems to be investigated within 2 weeks and a repair started shortly after, something health charities welcome but say needs to be done correctly.
It's the enforcement that really matters. It needs to take the burden off of tenants and place the burden onto enforcement so that when tenants report things, they're not ignored.
Well, Jim, this has clearly been a very difficult situation, hasn't it, for those two tenants? So what have Gentoo said in response?
Certainly has, Dawn. They say they were very sorry to hear of the issues, and as soon as they were made aware, they reached out to both Mr Iverson and Mr Fuller to apologise and to rectify the issues. In the case of Mr Iverson, this includes the installation of a new kitchen, which the firm says was previously refused back in 2022 over fears that work could cause disruption. Gentoo also will be installing a new bathroom. Meanwhile, it says staff have been to visit Mr Fuller today to carry out work to address the issues that he raised in my report. Speaking about the issues more broadly, though, the firm says it's invested in a dedicated damp and mould team to ensure customers are supported as quickly as possible with any issues. It goes on to say that its customers deserve the best standards of service from Gentoo, and in this situation, in the case of Mr Iverson and Mr Fuller, it has not got things right, but will ensure it learns from what has happened.
That's good news, Jim.